Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Stravens bringing you guys a two-part commentary in this particular video. The first part of this commentary is actually going to be about the specialist character Blackjack, which I recently unlocked. I'm going to be going through the rogue and the gambler options which you get as part of Blackjack. And the second part of the video is going to be something which is in the current news area, which is about Brexit, which is the British exit from the European Union. Now, I would totally understand if there are people on this channel who are really here for gameplay commentary. So what I did was I'm going to make this a really long video, or longer than what I am used to, and I'm going to put the Brexit piece in the second half of the video. So if you want to totally only concentrate on the options for the specialist character Blackjack, you can just stay on for the first half and then wait for the second half if you're really interested in how the Brexit impacts America or various parts of the world, and how it has a cascading effect on people's economies. So now, getting right into the video, let's talk about Blackjack. So the first option which you see with Blackjack is the gambler, which you see on your screen right now. Gambler essentially gives you the ability to get a random skill from the specialist deck, which is a random ability, and you can see that the one option which you have if you press left or on the D-pad is essentially the option to redraw a specialist ability if you didn't really like it. So if you look at the first couple of specialist abilities that I got, I actually didn't redraw any of them because I actually liked both of them, and they both seem to have suited the situation that I was in, and I pretty much didn't go for the redraw. But you'll see coming up right here that that if there is an option for me to redraw, I definitely invoke it and I go for the redraw. Now the second option which you will see is rogue, which is essentially giving you the ability to gain access to a specialist weapon of the specialist character which you killed when it comes down to your enemies. Now to get that and invoke that is it's not time based on the power meter, where the power meter moves up based on time and kills. That is purely kill based. So essentially you need to get 5 kills to invoke that option. Now that option too, you definitely have the ability to redraw, and I think that's what gives this particular specialist character an edge, and it gives you that little bit of extra to essentially pretty much pick and choose a weapon or an ability depending on the situation you're in. So I'm glad they actually only released this for an hour, and you really need to earn this, because honestly this could in the right player's hands be a little bit overpowered. So that's pretty much all I'm going to be talking about the specialist character Blackjack. I hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay in the background, because I want to really talk about something a little more important which actually affects most people here and also in America and probably all around the world, which is Brexit. So as a lot of people know, especially if you follow current news, that there was a huge vote which happened recently, and Britain essentially had this vote where they had an upset, where they actually voted to essentially leave the European Union. Now a lot of people thought that was never going to happen because of the adverse effects that it has, not just on the world economy but also the crushing effect it has on Britain itself. But what do sometimes things like these like this happens. It apparently people found out that a lot of people were either misguided into voting themselves out of the European Union, and a lot of people were essentially caught off guard by how few people voted for this. So I don't know if they're going to reactivate a referendum and get them to revote, but for now you got to imagine that essentially pretty much Britain's out of the European Union, and now what happens now is really what this video is going to be about. So let's look at the negatives first, because as you go with any option and you analyze it and break it down, especially something as big as this, there's going to be pros and cons. So let's get right into the cons. So the biggest con obviously is, and I'm going to speak about this from a US perspective, is honestly, if you have a 401k, which is essentially a retirement account which people save money for their retirement basis, or an IRA or stocks, those are going to go down, because that's one of the effects with the Britain using getting out of the UK, because it has a cascading effect on the world economy, because there's going to be trade issues, then there's going to be redrawing of a lot of contracts between the European Union and Britain, and honestly that's what's going to happen. And that is going to mess with trade, mess with the global trade, and that's what's bringing a lot of the stock market down. The second thing which I will talk about is honestly a option which not a lot of people are talking about right now, which is the US actually has a very stable relationship with the UK. So this could potentially have an impact with the US's special relationship with the UK, because the US needs a strong ally, in Europe, and if Britain is not going to be in Europe or not going to be part of the EU, then honestly, the US might have to look at other countries like Germany and France to be an option. So that is something which is honestly, going to be huge, and it's going to have an effect on a lot of people. Now let's take a look at a couple of cons. We took when it comes to the actual British perspective. Now, from a British perspective, the cons are going to be actually a lot more severe. One thing is they're going to be out of the euro, and if you're out of the eurozone, honestly, there's going to be a huge effect in terms of the job market, because the eurozone, what it did was it gave people the ability to work all over Europe, and you really didn't need some sort of visa or a work visa or anything like that. So obviously a lot of the British are now going to have problems out there, because they can't really go to any part of the European Union and work. Now the second option, if you want to look at, is the pool of people that you get buying your products. Now if you're British and you have a lot of products that are available to a lot of people, you can't have people just come up and buy your products, because people need a lot of visas, they need a lot of other trade agreements in place for them to come and buy products from British companies. So that's going to have a massive effect on that. Now the second, the third con which I want to talk about is actually the British pound. Now that is actually something which is a little more intricate, because there's actually pros and cons within that option itself. Now the biggest problem obviously is the British pound is going to go down in value. It's going to be devalued, which means that with the British pound, you're not going to be able to buy a lot of things like you used to in the past, because the value of the pound now is going to be taking a pounding. Pardon the pun out there. No puns intended, but all puns intended, if you know what I mean. And the second thing is that if you look at the other side of the coin, with the pound actually going down in value, British exports are going to be going up, because it's cheaper for the British pound, and people who are buying British products it'll be cheaper for them to buy British products. But obviously the fact that they're out of the EU, that's going to cause a lot more complications. But if you're looking at it from a global perspective and not an EU perspective, let's say I'm from Africa and I will have the option to buy a British product and a Euro product, and because the pound has devalued so much, it's a lot cheaper for me to buy the British product, and British exports become a lot more interesting to me, a lot more of value to me than a European product, because it's simply cheaper and I get a better I get a better bang for my buck there. Now going out on that particular pro out there, I want to bring up another thing, which is honestly I've been thinking about it too, because I've always wanted to go to Europe, I've always wanted to go to the UK. So someone like me, with the pound going down so much in value, I'm going to be seriously thinking about going to the UK, because my dollars are going to stretch a lot more than they used to. So that's another interesting thing that you want to look at. Now another pro I want to go about is from a American perspective. Now this pro is actually pretty interesting, because as people just flood money out of the the British market, they're going to be going all into the American market, because they're going to be going into something like treasuries, and what that's going to have is going to have an effect on your mortgage, or if you're one of my younger audience members, your parents' mortgage, because that the 10-year treasury yield is going to fall down a lot, and that actually has an effect on your parents' mortgage or your mortgage if you're one of my older audience members. So that means pretty much that now would be a great time to buy, because people have a knee-jerk reaction and they're going to flood into things like gold and treasuries, and that's going to have an effect, cascading effect, like interest rates are going to go down even lower. So I hope this video was a little informative to you. If you're a younger audience member of mine, if you're an older audience member of mine, hope you guys are a little more prepared. So hope you guys enjoyed this. I enjoy doing commentaries like this, and I hope you guys give me a positive response to this. And so until another video, guys, take it easy and have a great weekend.